Welcome to Authenticity Unleashed. I am your host, Pam Rader, and today we're talking all things courage. We hear the term courage a lot. We've got to be brave and courageous and to grow and to expand in our lives. But courage is kind of a vast concept, and I thought we would break it down today so that maybe each of us has a place to look at. We could more intentionally practice courage to kind of take us to the next level in our lives. Now, I'm looking at this through more of a leadership lens, and you can certainly apply it to the business world and leadership in business. But the way I look at leadership is a little different than some leadership professionals. I think that the goal is that we all become leaders in our own lives, that we are steering the ship of our own lives. We're leading our families, we're leading our communities in some way, that we all embrace the leader within each of us as part of our authentic journey on this earth. So, the first type of courage that I want to talk about is public courage. Now, public courage is very different than the next kinds of courage I'm going to talk about. Public courage is the ability to speak up at a meeting and say, hey, I don't necessarily agree with that. Public courage is the willingness and the ability to maybe share your story vulnerably as an access to serving or helping others. Public courage may be inspiring or enrolling groups of people. I've had a lot of opportunity to practice public courage in sharing my story through writing a book, through public speaking, through sharing while I'm leading yoga teacher trainings and yoga classes. And even in my coaching, when I'm training coaches and that sort of thing, sharing publicly my viewpoints, sharing about what matters to me, and hopefully inspiring and enrolling others in my vision. And that's really what public courage is. It's like, I can stand up in front of a group and share something that matters to me, and then maybe even have the skill to enroll those people in my vision. And it takes public courage for us to make change in the world. We actually have to let people know what we're up to. And especially when you're leading a company or a group of people, perhaps you're managing people, you do need to be able to access this aspect of yourself, public courage, to take the steering wheel and say, this is the direction we're going and here's why. We hear a lot of, people with public courage, like great orators like Martin Luther King, or pastors and influencers can step outside of themselves and share these really amazing ideas and their dreams and wishes. But that is not the only aspect of great leadership. Because one of the things that I see a lot of is that there are many leaders who have public courage mastered. They're great in front of a camera, if you will. They're great getting the masses excited about what they're doing. But they're not great at this next aspect, and that is interpersonal courage. And interpersonal courage is really the courage to have the difficult conversations that hold the standards that you set in your life and in your business. Now, oftentimes we have great speakers that inspire and they share these amazing ideas and they're thought to be so brave and courageous. But when it comes down to having a difficult conversation with someone that works for them or with them or someone in their family, they shy away from it because they don't want to be seen as unkind, or they are afraid of the repercussions, the flack they may get from that. Or to be honest, sometimes they're afraid they're going to get called out on their own bullshit. And so they hide behind sort of this public courage, but then in the background, they're not having difficult conversations and things are falling apart. Now, there was a time in my life when that was certainly the case. I had a hard time having difficult conversations. But you know what? Those difficult conversations are way less hard than the fallout of not having them. So let's just pull that apart. If you're a business owner and you hold a standard and you see someone in your you you express a standard and you see someone in your business not holding the standard, but you don't want to have the conversation with them because it might hurt their feelings or it might ruffle feathers or whatever else is going on, and you don't want to be seen as being tyrannical or whatever your reasons are. And this is how you know you're not practicing interpersonal courage, is because you'll start rationalizing and justifying, well, they're just having a bad day and they're just this, and maybe I should just give them the benefit of the doubt. But you know what? That's just you protecting you, and that's being selfish. Real leadership is clearing the path, being willing to have the difficult conversations, knowing how to do those things, learning how to have those conversations, and then being willing to receive the feedback that comes back to you. Because the cost of not holding the standards in your relationships and in your workplace is high. Let's just say that you're an upper level leader or manager and you've got a good relationship with a team underneath you, but there's something going on a little below that and somebody's not holding the standard and you don't bother having the conversation or teaching your people how to have the conversation. What happens is that person who's not holding the standard becomes the new standard. Everyone around them goes, this is how we can treat the company. This is how I can treat that person. This is how I can treat my friend, because that person gets away with it. So now that's the new standard. And eventually that's going to cause a breakdown, whether you're talking about a family scenario, whether you're talking about, a friendship, or whether you're talking about a company with 50,000 people. If you can't have the tough conversations, someone else is setting the standard for your company, and it's the lowest common denominator that's doing it. So learning how to have interpersonal courage, your voice might shake. You might say, I'm not very good at having these conversations, but I believe in you and I want to hold this standard for our relationship so that we can clear the air and move beyond this thing that is in front of us. That, my friends, is being a leader in your life. That, my friends, is great leadership. Now, let me tell you, I'm not perfect at this. I sometimes let things go a little bit too long before I'll have the conversation. But in my experience, when I've had the conversation, it is way less stressful to just do the thing than it is to keep thinking about the thing. Now, the third kind of courage that I want to talk about, and this gets a little deeper, a little more intense, if you will, and that's individual courage. The courage to take a good long look at yourself. So we have to have the courage in interpersonal courage to look at other people and to give feedback about that. But individual courage is the courage to give yourself feedback, to have an honest look in the mirror and say, who am I being? What's important to me? And am I aligning? Are my actions and my words aligning with who I say I want to be? Recently, I had a really long, hard look in the mirror at myself. I found myself complaining a lot, like just complaining a lot about certain people in my life. And I didn't like the way it made me feel. And I tend not to be a big complainer. So it kind of didn't feel right. But I felt like almost addicted to it, just complaining. And I was complaining to certain people. And one of the people in my life called me on it and said they didn't like the way that was. They didn't like the way that it made them feel. And I was like, wow, okay, yeah, I can get that. And I can 100% agree with that aspect. I'm not sure why I'm doing that. Now, the real flex here, the courage aspect, comes in looking in the mirror and going like, what's really going on? What am I getting out of that? Why am I doing that? I was committed to really shifting that, taking that feedback, plugging it in. And I realized that there are a couple of people in my life that I really craved to have their attention growing up. And these people were busy people, always on the go, always creating. And I felt very much like I didn't get their attention as often as I would have liked. Now, that's no shade to those people. That's just how it was. And what I realized was in conversing with these people who are still very close to me in my life, the time that I feel connected to them is when they complain about other people and I happen to agree. It's like a way of occupying their world. And even if I don't agree, just listening to it. And I actually learned to connect with some important people in my life through complaint. And to discover that about myself was like, yuck. I don't want to meet my need for connection that way. And ooh, I've been doing that. And gross. No, thank you. I will do better. But unless we're willing to take a long, hard look at ourselves, we don't get there. And here's what I see generally happen. Someone confronts you with something and you give all your reasons, your defenses, and you get defensive about it. And then there's a war. They said this and I said that, and nothing gets resolved. When it comes to receiving feedback, you got to really look inward and go, is it true? What part of this is true? If I'm a leader and I'm committed to growth, then what is the part of this that I have to own? And then why? What's going on there? What can I do about it? And the reason to me that this is the most important kind of courage that you can exhibit is because people don't give a shit what you're saying. They see who you're being. And if you are continually being someone who's willing to look at yourself and grow and expand and shift gears when necessary and take ownership of your mistakes, then other people see that that is the standard. You are setting the standard. Now, the last little area I want to talk about as far as courage goes is as a leader, when we're specifically talking about leadership, it's like, I want to have the courage to say, I don't know, and I don't always have the best ideas. And if someone else has a great idea, to acknowledge them for that, to say, hey, I'm glad you had that idea. Clearly come up with that, and I would love to help you implement that idea. Again, whether it's a family or a business doesn't really matter. Give credit where credit is due. Have the courage to let other people have moments to shine in leadership. And though, if you are in a position of leadership and the implementation of that thing doesn't go as well as you thought, then you also have to have the courage to take responsibility for that. Hey, I agreed that it was a good idea. I told you to go ahead and implement it. I didn't actually check all the facts, and I'm going to wear that. Now, that's courageous leadership in a nutshell. It doesn't mean you take the blame for low standards. It doesn't mean you take the blame for every little thing. It means you give credit to your people, and then you have the courage to wear the responsibility when necessary. So when it comes to courage, there are 3 areas to practice. Public courage, which is going to help you enroll people in your vision. Some of you maybe have room to step up around that, to express yourselves more, to share opinions that differ from the crowd if it's really true for you, and just step into your authentic expression. Number 2, some of y'all got to learn to have tough conversations. It's not for the faint of heart, but it is so deeply worth it. And number 3, individual courage. Learn to fearlessly look yourself in the eye and say, where's the real growth for me? So I hope this has given you something to think about. I never say I am fearless, but I do my best to practice courage. And I encourage you all to practice courage in the area that maybe makes the most sense for you. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you like the show, please share the show. It means a lot to me to help share these ideas out into the world. And if it resonates with you in some way and helps you in some way, the best way for you to help others is to share it. Just let them know I heard this podcast that helped me think about things differently. Until next time, peace out.